Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission for May 15th, 2019 are called to order concurrently at 6 o'clock p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Ortiz.
Hand over your heart, everyone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Do we have the roll call, please?
Chairperson Smith,
Present.
Vice Chairperson El Shanable,
Present.
Commissioner Carey,
Present.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Present.
Commissioner Caraveo.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Oral communications. Please note the rules for meeting decorum on the screen. In the interest of time, these will not be read, but be advised that the Planning Commission will adhere to these standards. This is a time for the public to address the Planning Commission and the Airport Zoning Commission for items not on the agenda. Please note that if an item is scheduled as a public hearing, you will have an additional opportunity to speak when the public hearing is opened or continued. Comments made now regarding items scheduled for a public hearing will not be included in the official record of public testimony for that item. If anyone would like to address the Commission on items that are not on the agenda, please come up to the podium. Please address your comments to the Commission as a body and not to individual commissioners directly. Only very brief responses may be given to questions asked on topics not on the agenda. Please keep remarks to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to come to the podium?
Greetings.
Good evening.
My name is Abdul Ali. Peace and greetings to everybody here. As I promised before, I would come back and invite you guys to our interfaith dinner this Saturday, May 18th, 7:30. Again, thank you for approving our expansion of the roof. And as I promised, I said I would come back and invite you all to dinner, and you get to look firsthand. If you've never been to our Islamic Center Hawthorne, this is a great chance. Bring you and your family. So thanks again. I appreciate you having me here, and you guys doing a great job in the city. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
What time is the dinner? Oh, okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing no one else, I will close oral communications.
1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chair, sorry. I'd like to extend the condolences to all the families and victims in the past months all over the world of different faiths, different threats and attacks on churches, synagogue, and mosques, and to know that the Islamic Center Hawthorne doesn't condemn any acts of violence against any faith or any people. We for humanity, and just want to say peace starts with us together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no one else, I will close oral communications. The Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar. On approval of Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission minutes for the regular meeting of March 20th, 2019. Someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a comment first. On page 3, I know that it says for my name, it says abstain, but I did recuse myself from item number 2. So should it say abstain or recused?
We can fix that. Yeah, it should
Yes.
say a recuse.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And move to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a
We-
second.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote, please.
Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson El Shanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Carey,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Caraveo.
Yes.
The
Right.
minutes have been approved.
Thank you. Approval of Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission minutes for the regular meeting of April the 17th, 2019. Do we have a motion to?
Yes, so I do have a motion to approve with the proposed verbiage that staff has put in front of us.
Mhm.
I'm okay with it if anybody else wants to discuss it
I have to abstain, so.
or, okay.
So, and the final version of the minutes will include these conditions.
Okay, thank you.
So motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. We'll go, sorry, I keep stepping on your toes.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and take the vote, sorry. Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson El Shanable.
Abstain.
Abstain. Commissioner Carey,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
and Commissioner Caraveo.
Yes.
So the minutes have been approved for 4-0 with one abstention.
Thank you. We'll now recess the Airport Zoning Commission and come to Planning Commission consent calendar. Are there any items?
We have no items.
No items. Continued public hearings. Are there any items?
No items.
Item. New public hearing, Zone Text Amendment Number 2018-ZA07. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider Zone Text Amendment 2018-ZA07. Associate Planner Maria Majeric will present a staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yes, I will be presenting Zone Text Amendment 2018 ZA07 regarding accessory structures for citywide properties. And that includes residential, commercial, and industrial properties. The problem with the current code is that it does not clearly define what a permitted accessory structure or use is. And I've put in a couple of the quotes from the current code. And the issue is that the interpretations are broad, and the code says it's customarily incidental building or use. So it's very broad. It doesn't really define what it is. So what staff is proposing is very simply clearing up the definitions within the code so that it clearly states what a structure or use must be. They must be related to the principal use on site. And what we did is that at the end of the definitions, which are in your packet, we wrote any use that is not clearly related to the principal use on site will not be allowed. And so I've put together a few photos of examples of what we would like to see, what we don't want to see. So for example, garages are accessory structures. Patio covers are accessory structures. Pools are accessory structures, and accessory dwelling units are accessory structures. What we don't want to see are containers that, are going to be told to us that, oh, these are accessory structures. No, we don't want to see this because the architecture also has to match the existing house. And we do have some guidelines for that within the code already that we're not so far changing. We want to see a garage. We don't want to see a cover like that in this photo. We don't want to see a silo become some sort of accessory structure because it does not match what is there on site. For commercial zoned lots, we want to see walkways, patio covers that match the building. We want to see towers that are architecturally match the building that's there, that look good, that, they can have a clock, they can have windows, but something that matches, that brings together the building. We don't want to see containers on the lot of any type. We don't want to see covers such as these to store cars on lots. For industrial properties, we want to see, again, an architecture that matches the building, that will flow nicely, that architecturally looks beautiful. We don't want to see this. That doesn't go with anything that's on site. It doesn't match the building. There's no other purpose other than it's just there. We don't want to see something like this. We do want to see this. As you recognize this is SpaceX and the rocket that's there. This is what they do in the building. So absolutely, it's a piece of architecture, it's a piece of history. We should be able to see that. Silos for one of our breweries, Common Space. We want to see silos. Those are part of what they do within this building. We don't want to see containers on the site. They're unsightly. If they need storage, the buildings should match architecturally what is there. So this pretty much concludes my staff report. It's a very simple fix to the definitions of the accessory structure and the use. So with this, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt PC Resolution 2019-06, recommending that the City Council approve Zone Text Amendment 2018 ZA07. Thank you. Any questions?
Does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff?
My question is if the area that is an industrial area, and I'll use the airport as an example, there are some Connex containers at the airport that are used to store volumes of stuff that would look like junk if we didn't keep it inside the Connex container.
Mm-hmm.
It actually keeps the place nice and neat. An example would be the hangar right at midfield that
Mm-hmm.
is got a hangar and it's got a nice Connex container painted the same color as the hangar and
Right.
it's kept clean and
Mhm.
locked up.
Those are the types of things we do want to see because it does flow with the building. It's not a container as you see on this slide where it's just placed on the side, it's stacked on each other, which the code doesn't allow. So yes, we do want to see the storage structures for those excess supplies and such. But in that way, those work.
So there are exceptions to containers.
We'd have to review it because we do have some regulations for design review. So yes, we do allow containers, but we also have the code to back us to make sure that it looks good and it doesn't become an unsightly scene.
Yeah, I think part of the goal of just this minor clarification is that we don't want, we've had instances where we've had unusual requests for accessory structures that basically are just standalone structures and aren't really accessory to anything, and then they don't clearly relate to the primary use on site. So this is sort of trying to capture that issue. The containers, generally as a rule, you know, we wouldn't vote for them if we could. If a container is not, you know, readily visible from the street, then we have a little more flexibility. And I mean, I don't think the one you're referring to at the airport is visible from the street.
But that's approved at the planning department's level, right? It doesn't have to come before the commission for a vote.
Correct.
And I would also tell you that rocket that sits out in front of SpaceX, that was the first one they successfully landed upright.
Oh, that's
And
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It had some hoops to jump through with the FAA, but somebody got a bunch of letters together and got it through the FAA. And I'm very proud of that rocket.
There's a
pretty
lot
cool.
of tourists and pictures that are taken in front of that rocket.
It's great. I thought he was going to put a capsule on the top of it. Maybe when they finally get the capsule successfully back, they'll put one on top of it.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I
looks
think they're
like it's
working on
missing
that.
something.
Yeah, it does.
But
And
they're-
some
yeah.
people mistake it for a smokestack when you see it from a far distance.
Yeah.
But if you drive north on Crenshaw, you can start to see it at El Camino College. It's that prominent, so
Yeah.
it's all good.
No, great.
Well, through the chair, I'm glad to hear about the discretion that would still be available for, let's say, something like containers, even for like residential. You know, there's some pretty creative things that you could do with containers. You know, if they're treated architecturally right. So
Correct.
okay. And,
Yes.
And then for accessory structures in residential, the minimum lot size requirement is 8,000 square feet, right? That's what's being.
No, there, Chris is actually going to go
that's-
through,
that's-
yes,
okay.
Chris
That's
is going to go
the
through
next-
the
okay.
accessory dwelling unit
Okay.
regulations
Okay.
and language.
All right.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
we did this all together.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. There's not an applicant on this, right?
No,
City.
it's the city.
City, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to address the commission on this issue? Seeing no one, we'll move on. Mr. Ramirez, are there any documents to place into the administrative record, such as late communication?
No.
Thank you. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on this item or questions from staff? Okay. Now I formally close the public hearing on this item. Call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on this item. So do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Commissioner Ortiz has made a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Okay. Secretary, call for the vote.
All right, Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson El Shanabli,
Yes.
Commissioner Carey,
Yes,
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
and Commissioner Caravale.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes and the resolution's been adopted, approving Zone Text Amendment 2018 ZA07. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is Zone Text Amendment Number 2018 ZA05. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider Zone Text Amendment Number 2018 ZA05. Senior Planner Chris Palmer will present the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Last time I was before you, I kind of gave you kind of a brief overview, explained that this was coming, and I explained what we were doing in the interim with a policy. So the policy that I explained to you a couple meetings ago now is in the form of an ordinance. So I'm going to just kind of run through it to kind of give the highlights. And if you have questions, please let me know. So this map kind of just demonstrates the density in the United States. So you can take a look at this map and see that the northeastern portion, the New York area and DC area, that's a lot of density. Down in Florida, they have density. Parts of Texas, and then when you get over to California, you see San Francisco and in Southern California as a kind of really high density. So in California, they made a state law because back in the 1980s up until about 2002, cities weren't really, according to the state, doing their part in allowing for the provision of affordable housing or even housing for that matter. So they were required to provide for accessory dwelling units. Back in the 80s, these were referred to as granny flats. So in 2016, state legislature passed Assembly Bill 2299 and Senate Bill 1069, amending sections of state law regulating ADUs. And in 2017, January 1st of 2017, that became law. And every city in California that wasn't in compliance, their ordinance became void. That's when we developed a policy because we were responsible. The city of Hawthorne had second unit ordinance when we were supposed to have it, and that's how we have in some of the single-family neighborhoods, you have a single-family home in the front and you have a duplex to the rear. That's what our interpretation of the accessory dwelling unit law was in the early 2000s. We amended that back in 2005, and we kind of changed the density in the entire city. So California, like I was saying, is saying that, you know, there's 39 million people in California, and we have to make sure that we provide housing for them, specifically a form of affordable housing. That's what the accessory dwelling unit ordinance is meant to do. So in Hawthorne, what this ordinance is proposing is two types of accessory dwelling units, a detached ADU and an attached ADU. This is like a sample plot plan of, you know, what that may look like if you built a new ADU or converted a portion of it. So here's one that has a two-car garage to the front. They have the existing house, and they have a new ADU attached to the rear. And then, you know, this is just a sample of a detached ADU. And then here's an interior conversion of an ADU. So, you know, to the left, from my left, they have the garage, and then they submit us plans saying, hey, we want to convert our garage, and then they show us something like this, and this is considered an interior ADU that's taking the garage space. So this is a garage conversion accessory dwelling unit. So some of the things that I just want to emphasize that we're doing with the municipal code, we have a minimum lot size because the state does not tell us that we have to use a certain lot size. So whatever the state doesn't tell us to do, we can go ahead and you know, create language to protect the character of the city in that manner. So our minimum lot size for a detached ADU is 8,000 square feet. So if anyone in the city has an 8,000 square foot lot, they can submit to the planning department plans to build a detached unit towards the rear of the property. So the limitations on that is going to be the height. If you build a detached ADU in the city of Hawthorne, it's limited to 12 feet to the plate line, which is typical single-story home. We do not allow you to build an ADU on top of the garage when this ordinance goes into effect. Now, if you have, if you did an interior ADU and you had a second story already on your home and you converted a portion of your home, that's when you can get the second story ADU. But to build a brand new ADU in the city of Hawthorne, it will not be on top of your garage. And then the footprint of the building, you're looking at typical lot coverage. You still cannot exceed 50% lot coverage in the R1, R2, and R3. And ADUs are only allowed where there's a single family home. So if you have a duplex, you cannot have an ADU. Triplex, no ADU. It's only for single family homes. Parking. I'm going to be real careful now. So the state law says that if you're within a quarter mile of transit, you're not required to have parking for the ADU. Hawthorne has such great transportation that every home is basically within a quarter mile of transit. However, we do require parking for the single-family home that is on site. So state law says that we can ask that someone provide an ADU replace the parking. However, that can be allowed in any configuration that they see fit, even in a setback, as long as it's not, you know, detrimental to the neighbor. So basically what you'll see is if somebody's converting their garage, then their driveway becomes required parking. The number of bedrooms. So the number of bedrooms is restricted in the ADU as well, and the size of the unit is restricted as well. And you cannot exceed 2 bedrooms in an ADU, and that's going to be hard to do anyway because the ADUs, when it's an interior ADU, which means basically a garage conversion or a conversion of the den or some existing square footage, it can only be 50% of the size of the home. So if your home is 800 square feet, you're looking at basically a 400 square foot conversion, which is typically the size of a garage. And so you're not going to get more than maybe a studio or a 1 bedroom in that configuration anyway. But if it's a detached ADU and you have 8,000 square feet, then the maximum size would be 50% or up to 1,200 square feet, whichever is, well, up to 1,200 square feet. And two other things I want to point out. A covenant is required. The state says that cities can impose a covenant, which means that if you build an ADU, you have to live in one of the units. The owner has to live in the ADU, or the owner has to live in the original single-family residence. And there's a 30-day minimum rental duration guideline, which means this is not going to be an Airbnb. It's not going to be a party home, a weekend rental. The minimum is 30 days if you're going to build and use an ADU. That concludes my report. I am available for questions.
Thank you. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff?
I just have a quick question. How do we enforce that it's being occupied for 30 days?
That's a great question, and I don't know that yet.
Okay.
I do not know that at this time.
It'll be more a matter of where, in the event that we receive complaints, and when we go in to verify, we would address it at that point. But then at least we have what, the written part of the code that gives us the ability to enforce that they can't turn it into an Airbnb or other type of vacation rental.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question through the chair. So I know we vaguely remember we talked about this, but what's the reason for the 8,000 square foot minimum? It seems a bit excessive considering the typical size of a lot in the city or compared to a lot of other cities, and the fact that if we're only allowing this ADU in a with only one single family on the lot, it seems that there's plenty of space for sure for 8,000 square foot lot, but even less than that.
8,000 is what we had in place when we drafted the original ADU ordinance from the early 2000s, and it passed the muster of the state. And so in our single family, we had the luxury of having the experience of having higher density on smaller lots. And so that affects the character of the neighborhood, the quality of the neighborhood. And to be quite honest, an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, isn't the best option for every home in the city. So we're aware that ADUs on smaller lots create problems that they won't create on bigger lots. We've had the option of having ADUs on smaller lots that are detached, and that interferes with the density of the property. The thing is, the idea is to protect the character of the single family neighborhood. And if you are allowed to do a subdivision on an 8,000 square foot lot, the Planning Commission has done a couple of those. So on a smaller lot, you're not allowed to do a subdivision. So that's kind of the threshold that we have. And if you're in a R2, we allow for a duplex on a 7,000 square foot lot. So an ADU is really intended to be a single family. So it's a lot of different things that we've experienced, a lot of different things that we've seen. And I think 8,000 is the best to protect the character of the neighborhood and still meet the guidelines of the state.
So is 8,000 square feet, there's not a lot of lots that would be 8,000 square feet, right? That would, percentage-wise, is it? Because I think part of the idea is to allow it so that the housing stock can increase, right? It's not.
That's why
we're trying to achieve a balance.
That's why the state wants to allow it.
Yeah.
But our experience in Hawthorne is we've been consistent with our housing. Our RENA numbers, we were required to build or allowed to be built 683 units. We have over 800 units. So we're meeting and exceeding the standards set by the state. So this is our effort to protect that. So, yes, we do have a lot more 5,000 square foot units. And the fear is if we would allow by right everyone to have a detached structure in a 5,000 square foot unit, that would completely damage the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree with the 5,000. That's way too low. But it seems like 8,000 is pretty large lot, you know, for to be able to still put an ADU and maintain the character. You know, it's a large lot. So.
And the 8,000 is not it's not a deterrent because you know we have dozens of applications for ADUs in the queue right now in the planning department that we're approving. The only thing that it would deter is a detached structure. So you can still have an ADU. You're even allowed to add to your home and convert that portion. So you're still allowed to have an ADU. It's just a detached is kind of.
So what's the minimum for? Is there a minimum for a when it's not detached? When it's
No, the key language is existing square footage.
oh, okay.
That's the key language.
Okay.
So let me back into a little bit of information. So for the threshold of 8,000 square feet is for new square footage, either attached or detached. So you can add on to your house with the, you know, let's say 1,000 square foot accessory dwelling unit if you meet all the other requirements of the code, and you have a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet. There is no minimum lot size for converting existing space.
Okay.
So we're not necessarily prohibiting anybody from establishing an accessory dwelling unit in their on their property, but part of the challenge is balancing the state's goals with our local priorities and moving in a direction where we're preserving the existing single-family neighborhoods that we have that are, you know, really great places to live. And those lot sizes are in the 5,000 to 6,000 square foot range. And based on the lot size and the dimensions and the existing layouts of the pattern of development, to allow a wholesale addition, it really would start to impact the quality of life for that particular home as far as outdoor area, and then privacy issues and parking issues, because now the state has moved in a direction where if there's a bus stop within a half a mile, they don't have to provide any parking effectively. They can get rid of their garage. So we would be in a position where folks would get creative, likely, and convert their garage and then add another, you know, X number of square feet. And then you have a duplex with no parking except for, you know, a 2-car driveway. So
Yeah.
some of those things, you know, we play out in our minds right before we fall asleep at night. And so that's where some of the experience comes from with the 8,000 square foot.
Yeah, so now it's coming back. I recall that we had the discussion, and I think one of my concerns was that maybe by having the threshold high, like 8,000 square feet for a minimum lot size, then it would motivate the homeowner to then instead convert their garage into an ADU as opposed to doing it the right way, which would be a separate, you know, structure. And so then you have more issues of parking, you know, when they convert the garage itself. So that I remember that's one of the items that we were talking about.
I've assisted someone at the counter, and we were discussing ADUs, and they didn't have a lot size that was 8,000 square feet, and the option was to convert their garage or some other interior space. And they said, "Oh, I'm not giving up my garage. It's only one side of parking on my street." So they actually walked away from the ADU. Maybe they'll come back, but they had the option to still park in their driveway, but they actually wanted a garage. So people that use their garage are probably likely not gonna.
I would say we should just be mindful of if we start seeing a big wave of everybody converting the garages. If I had a choice of seeing a neighborhood with all the garages converted to having a secondary structure on the property, I mean, for me personally, I think it would be maintain the character more by having the secondary structure. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And how many parking spaces are required for just a regular single-family residence?
Existing single-family residents require 2 parking spaces covered up to 4 bedrooms. A brand new home requires 4 parking spaces, so that's still a 2-car garage, but we allow you to count 2 additional uncovered spaces, basically a driveway.
And then so with the interior ADU conversion, would they have to provide now 4 parking spaces in the driveway, or how
No,
many?
only 2. Just 2 spaces would be required
And why is that?
because the state is going to allow them to take up the spaces that we're saying have to be covered, and so the other 2 can be in any configuration, even if it's tandem. So if the garage is in the back, they park in up to 6 cars in their driveway. If it's in the front, they have 2. And of course, since they're going to be within a quarter mile, we can't even ask them to provide the additional parking.
So since the code requires 2 in the driveway and 2 in the garage, now they can only provide 2 in the driveway.
Yes.
Okay. And then so if the code were changed to 3 parking spaces within a garage, how would that work?
The state law is meant to circumvent our code to make sure that we provide for ADU. So there's not really an argument that we could form to place a premium on parking over providing for housing of the affordable nature.
So if we were to ask for 3 parking spaces for a regular single-family residence within a garage, and then they convert the garage, they would still only be able to provide only 2 parking spaces in the driveway?
Because what we cannot do is, according to state law, we can't create a code that would make it infeasible to get the ADU. So if we allow them to convert their garage and then we say that you have to come up and replace 3 parking spaces and there's no way they can configure their lot to do it, then we're not in the spirit of the law in helping to provide for the providing for affordable ADUs. And I do get what you're saying, and we've been looking at this in several different ways, and we've asked other consultants, we've talked to other cities, and what we're providing for you has taken that into consideration.
Yeah, we're really in a difficult position with the portion of state law that doesn't allow us to require parking effectively for any request that's within, actually it's a half mile of a bus, literally it's half a mile of a bus stop. So, if you take all of our major arterials and you run a half mile in from each end, we're on a mile sections, it effectively covers most of the city where we can't compel replacement parking if someone converts their garage. So, and this isn't unlike the challenges that just about every other city in the state is having with this same law. So we don't disagree with you. I think it's more of our hands are somewhat collectively tied.
And then so for the current code of providing 2 parking spaces within the driveway, what if their driveway isn't 2 parking spaces? What if it's just like 1, or if it's too small to meet the minimum requirements?
That wouldn't be permitted. So if someone built a brand new home, their driveway would have to be at least 18 feet deep and close to 20 feet wide. And so the code does allow for them to expand the width of the driveway in the front an additional 6 feet. So that basically, if they have a 2-car garage, they have 3 cars parked in front of their garage next to each other.
Well, because we're talking about the existing, the interior ADU conversion. So like for an existing lot with pretty much a small driveway, like are they not allowed to do that conversion because their driveway too small, or?
I haven't seen anything like that, but the state law says any configuration. So if they propose the configuration and I hate to say this, public television, but if they propose something like having a parallel park in front of their house sideways, we would have to permit that because that's a configuration that they're comfortable with within their setback. Currently, we don't allow people to park in their setbacks. You have to have a driveway. This law is saying that if they want to park on their front yard, they can do that.
And then are we still keeping is it 50% that you need landscaping in the front, or how much landscaping?
If they're converting, or if they're if the way the ADU works is that they shouldn't have to touch anything that's existing. But if it comes down to landscaping versus parking, parking's going to win if that's what the owner wants to do. So if they want to remove half of their lawn because they want an extra parking space, they can do that with this ADU ordinance based on state law.
And, sorry, just real quick on that point, can we require like a permeable type paving?
Yes, because that's not
situations
infeasible. Yes.
Okay. But it's not a requirement.
Right. I mean, if you want to add that, if you want to recommend to the council that be considered an ordinance,
I mean, I think it's already a problem with so much stormwater, you know, not being captured. So the more we build, the more we cover with concrete.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's important.
I have one more question. That detached dwelling, if your garage is detached, you can convert that to a dwelling?
yes. Except if you live in the Ramona tract.
Yeah. And you have a long driveway.
Correct.
Right, okay. Haven't parked a car in that garage in 20 years, so.
Park on the street, huh?
No, I never get to park in the street in my house. My one street parking spot in front of my house is used by all my neighbors. I've
Yeah.
never parked in the street.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, same thing in your neighborhood. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to address the commission on this issue? There are, please step up to the podium. Mr. Ramirez, are there any documents to place into the administrative record, such as late communications?
No.
Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on the item or questions from staff? Okay. I now formally close the public hearing on this item and call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on this item. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve with the condition that if the front yard would require to be paved for an additional parking stall, that the surface be permeable paving, some sort of permeable paving.
I'll second.
Okay. Will the secretary please call for the vote?
Okay. So Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson El Shanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Carey,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
and Commissioner Caravale.
Yes.
All right. The motion passes and the resolution is adopted approving ZTA 2018 ZA05. Thank you very much.
We will now recess the Planning Commission, call back to order the Airport Zoning Commission. Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar, is there any items?
No items.
No items. Airport Zoning Commission new or continued public hearings?
No items.
Items. Call back to order the Planning Commission concurrently with the Airport Zoning Commission. Are there any administrative items?
Just a little bit of a preamble or preview of what we're going to be bringing to you over the next couple of months. We have about 10 to 12 code amendments that are forthcoming over the next 3 to 4 months. And there's sort of a variety of different code clarifications, and in one instance, we're broadening the design review requirements. We haven't had a lot of luck creating and obtaining participation for a design review board. So at the behest of one of our council members, we're looking at a way to reinvent that code section and hopefully more broadly and evenly applied design requirements across the city, and have staff insert themselves in that design dialogue with the applicant. And then in the event that there's issues or conflicts that arise, it will be brought to the Planning Commission. We might also be looking at ways to incorporate a third-party architectural review for projects of a certain magnitude. So just so that we can make sure that what we're getting is it's a classical design, a quality design, and something that when it's built, we can look at that and go, okay, I'm glad that we approved that. So more to come on that. We're also looking at implementing a new citizen engagement program, and that is also at the behest of the same former planning commissioner, now city council member. And we're looking at ways to engage the community in the planning process earlier. And so we're looking at a variety of ways to do that, where we can connect with the millennial as well as maybe the baby boomer who doesn't have English as their first language. So we're kicking that back and forth among staff, and so as that starts to evolve and come forward, we'll keep you posted and let you know all the different elements of that outreach program. And I'm just thinking if there's other code amendments that are significant coming up. Most of them are clarifications and really to make staff's job easier when we're working the counter and communicating to potential development or developers, so that they understand what we expect and what we want, and we don't get painted in a corner trying to dissect semantics, that kind of thing. So but as they come forward, you'll see most of these are staff initiated, and so if you have questions, comments, window signs is another one that we're looking at. From a broad standpoint, we're revamping the temporary window signs or advertising sign allowances for commercial properties. And the goal is to, one, have a unified look or theme within the facility so that you don't have all these different signs. And then also ensure that emergency service personnel can safely enter and exit these facilities without being able to see what's happening inside and what's happening outside, so that the view isn't completely blocked. And we have that in some cases where a window sign consists of literally putting up a piece of plywood and painting it. And then if there was an emergency response to that location, it would put a police officer or fire personnel in a potentially dangerous situation because they can't see what's going on inside. So we're looking at different ways to handle that. So I think those are the big ones. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner reports. Anyone have anything?
I do have a report.
Sorry, you're not allowed to have a report today.
Right. In December, I started jumping through the hoops to take a job with the FAA. And with the shutdown, it got delayed, and then I had to take a flight test in Texas, and that took 3 trips to Texas to get that accomplished. And it finally got accomplished. And I had to submit a list of the companies that I work for, that I contract for, that I own, and anything that I own that could be perceived as a conflict of interest to an FAA inspector in the Los Angeles Flight Standards District Office. And that included all the commissions and boards and panels. And the one commission that I thought I could get away with, because we have a lawyer, because we have ethical requirements within the commission, I thought that they could allow that, but because the Hawthorne City owns an airport in the Los Angeles district area, the final decision of the lawyers in Seattle for the FAA is that I have to resign from the Planning Commission. So I submitted my letter of resignation to the mayor and city manager. And of all the things that I've been associated with, this is the one thing I was hoping I wouldn't have to resign from.
Yeah.
But I have sold Beach Cities Aviation Academy to my partner Robin. He's the sole owner now, and I have no more operational control there. I have no more operational control at Wolf Air. I never did work for Mr. Wolf's HHO, FBO. I resigned from Star Helicopters Chief Pilot and Director of Ops, and I, tomorrow night, am receiving an award from the Professional Helicopter Pilots Association. It's a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I'm going to feel a little awkward when I finish my acceptance speech and tell them that I have to resign from the Professional Helicopter Pilot Association board. And I actually thought I could pull that one off because it's located in Van Nuys, but because it covers the whole LA area, there would be a definite conflict of interest if someone flying a helicopter were to have an accident and I was the investigating aviation safety inspector. That would be a conflict of interest. So anything that can be perceived even as a conflict of interest, I have to resign from. It can't be just recuse myself like I thought we could get away with here. But I off and on have been on the commission for over 12 years, and I've really enjoyed the friendships and the partnerships, and I can come sit in the audience now and help your audience volume increase by at least one, and keep an eye on Juan so he's not too crazy. And I can go to the microphone and talk, but I can't make a decision, so I can't stay on the commission. I apologize, but the other side of that coin is I get another retirement, I get medical benefits, I get life insurance, medical benefits that aren't covered by Medicare, like eyes and teeth. And the life insurance is a big deal because I have no life insurance anymore. Long story. But overall, the job is great. I've been in the job 2.5 weeks now. I went into an office where one of the admin ladies I've known for 28 years, the other one I've known for 18 years. I know all but one of the inspectors very well, and I've never felt so welcome going into a new job with a bunch of friends and cohorts and getting a whole bunch of education dumped on my lap because I have to, they call it string training, but you have to do online string training before you go to Oklahoma City 3 times for a total of, or 4 times for a total of 12 weeks this summer and next fall. So I'll be gone a lot for the first year, but the rest of the time I'm here. And now you all have a friend inside the FAA. I explained to John that it might be better to be able to call Pat when he's on the inside of the FAA and find out where you're supposed to go to get the right answer if you're a lawyer in the city of Hawthorne or maybe a city manager who also is the airport manager needs an answer. So I'm still friends with everybody, I hope. And that's the status. Thank you for all the support all the time. Appreciate it.
Well, actually, go ahead.
Certainly is our loss. Yeah, been with you as long as you've been and longer, and really enjoyed your participation and can really understand where you're coming from on a lot of things.
Well,
Wish you the best
being
of luck.
on the Aero Club of Southern California as a member is perfectly legitimate. I just can't be on the board.
That's right, Ed, that's right, you can,
Okay.
absolutely. I work on that.
Well, I just want to say you'll definitely be missed, Pat. And I thought you were going to say you weren't going to take the job. You know, but
Didn't want to leave us.
That's what I thought it was going.
Oh, it starts out at a pretty high pay scale
Yeah.
because they base it on your experience. And there are a couple of other little, like
Yeah.
city workers. You know, you get every federal holiday off. I can work 4/10s. I can telework from home at least 1 or 2 days a week. And they base your vacation time on your total federal service. So I start out with not just a week of vacation for the year. All good.
Happy for you.
Yeah, and I have to say that, first of all, congratulations. It sounds like something great, and you will be greatly missed. You've been a wonderful person and a wonderful friend, and I really wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Is there anyone else who has anything to say?
Just a thought, is there a way that we can present Pat with some sort of certificate of
Certificate of a-
recognition or,
Have him
I'd
come
like
back.
to see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
everybody else is. okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you better clear that with the mayor, city manager. They might not be as happy with me as you.
Yeah. I just have, oh, sorry, go ahead. It's regarding my report, so please, if it's regarding this item.
Oh, I was just going to say that we will not skip out an opportunity to embarrass Commissioner Carey, so yes.
And by the way, they give you 90 days to withdraw, but I already turned it into Alex and Arnie, and I don't know how long before they pick somebody else to sit on the planning commission. But if you get short for a quorum up until the first week of July, call me and I'll be right back, right here.
I was just really quickly going to say, I know that I've mentioned this probably twice or three times. The plaza that's on 118th and Hawthorne Boulevard. Every now and then, you know, I tell them that it's really dirty and it's unattended. And I mean, it doesn't even look like part of the rest of Hawthorne from how filthy it looks. And it cleans up for a few weeks and then it goes back to being just as bad. And recently when I've been there, it has been pretty bad. So I hope that code enforcement or whoever is in charge can check it out, make sure that it's cleaned up. Thank you.
118th and Hawthorne?
Yes, sir. The one that has Ralph's and
Oh, yeah.
the 99-cent store. Yeah.
118 and what?
And Hawthorne.
Hawthorne.
Yes.
Nothing to report.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just congratulations.
I just have a comment. I brought it up to Chris before, and he went to code enforcement. There is a property at 116th and Menlo that it's got a garage that people are living in. It's got some other little building there, and it's got this house that is in the worst shape you've ever seen. And not only that, in the front yard, it has, they had a party there about 4 months ago. And they had a tent there, and the top half of the tent got blown off in the wind. The rest of it is dangling there. The grass will be as high as this top of this counter. There's the screen door was security gate, we don't call it, was half off, and now I see they've got it closed. But code enforcement, I understand, went by there on a Friday and looked at it and said they would go back on Saturday and talk to the people living there. Well, I'm sure the people living there are not the owners. And I don't understand why something can't be done about that. Even in the parkway, it's weeds. They're that high in the parkway. There used to be a lot of old furniture and junk just laying in the parkway. But finally, I think someone got rid of it. Yeah, there you go. Lovely place. They came out one time, I think after that complaint, and they went in there and they took a weed eater and they chopped down some of it just right in front of the house. But today it's 50 times worse than that photo. And it really makes our neighborhood look really, really junky. And right across the street is this place. You see those silver cars that are parked in front of those other garages? Right there, Chris. See the silver cars? They are junk cars. They have no front end, no front wheels. One of them has no rear wheels. They're blocked up. And looks like part of the engine is gone. I don't know what they're doing with it. And then, Chris, move it back to the side again. You see how the garage doors are always open?
Mhm.
Near right in that area near where the steps are going up to the second level, that used to be landscape area. And they took it out, planted concrete in there so they can park cars there. And at night, they have, even though the garage doors are open, there won't be any cars in them, but they'll all be parked in front of the garage door. And it's the most trashiest place that you've ever seen. And I don't understand why code enforcement can't do something about it. The only way the guy's going to get his cars out of there is with a forklift, but that's his problem, I think. And it's terrible. And the house across the street too is just as bad as it can be. So I'm hoping that someone from the planning department can ask code enforcement, or do I need to go in there? I don't think you want me to go in there.
I could talk to them, and I think what we're starting to see is more and more of a need to focus on some of those aesthetic and quality of life issues with some of the properties that throughout the city. So
Yeah. And you can obviously tell that there's someone that's living in that garage area. You know, the cars are parked on the street or they're parked in the yard, but not in the garage. So my complaint is that if I had a friend that would want to come visit me, there's no place to park within 2 blocks. And cars will sit there. There's one SUV that's been parked there for 4 weeks. I don't think it got moved the first week during street sweeping day, and I never saw a violation notice on it. But the next week, maybe they did and somebody came and took it off, but the next week they moved the car just for street sweeping day and put it right back. It's got a flat tire. They have to take and jump the battery to get it to run, to start, so they can move it. And why do we have to put up with that? I don't think it's fair to all of the other neighbors in the neighborhood that are trying their best to keep their property up.
yeah, I don't disagree. We'll send someone out there. It might take a little bit of time because we have to follow due process, but
But it's been more than a month since code enforcement went there. Yeah.
okay, I'll follow up.
But isn't there something that the city can contact the owner of because I can't believe the people living there are the owners.
Yeah, what we do is we have a formal citation process and communication process when we come across a violation, and it escalates. So first we send out a courtesy notice, and then we call, we follow up, we give them a certain amount of time to respond, and then we'll send a citation and give them a certain amount of time to respond or have corrective action. And then the citations get more and more costly over a period of time. We do re-inspections. We'll go out and try to make contact. We'll run property information to find out who the owner is. And so all that takes a little bit of time, but it's not unusual. It's unusual for us to go in and, sometimes with landscape maintenance on public properties, we can go and we can clear it. We do that some other times, but that takes a process, takes 5 or 6 days, and then we send a contractor out there to clean up the property, and then we bill back the property owner.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll follow up with code enforcement and see what's
Appreciate
going
it.
on. I'll keep
Appreciate
you
it
posted.
very much.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, if there's nothing further from the commissioners, this meeting is adjourned at 7:05.